The calls from school used to come almost daily, and when they didn't, I didn't feel relief. I felt panic. One of my clients recently said it best: when the phone stops ringing, my nervous system didn't know what to do. I had a panic attack, not because anything was wrong, but because, for once, everything was right. If you've ever felt this too, if peace somehow feels unsafe, it's not your fault. This episode is for you. We're talking about the emotional toll of raising a neurodivergent child and answering a question that haunts so many parents. Is this just normal behaviour, or is it ADHD? Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Dana Kay, your host. Hello parents, Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child podcast. Super excited about this one today. I want to paint a picture first. A few months ago, my youngest, he is 11 now, almost 12. He was in the kitchen and he was yelling at the top of his lungs because we didn't have the right brand of salsa. Not just upset, but I don't know, like this full-blown meltdown, and he was screaming and he was slamming cupboards, and for a split second, I felt my whole body tighten. You know that hot flush that runs through every bone in your body, like head to toe. My mind shot straight back to the early days of our ADHD journey when, those kinds of outbursts happened multiple times a day with my older son, and life felt just so unpredictable and so chaotic. And I remember thinking, wait, is this happening again? And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. That emotional spiral we go down when we're trying to answer a question that every parent of a neurodivergent child asks themselves at one point or another. Is this normal, or is this ADHD? Even when things are going well, when your child is calmer and happier and sleeping better and focusing better, one school phone call, one angry moment, one sort of incident can send you right back into that internal fear loop. What if we're regressing? What if the diet's not working anymore? What if this means it's all unraveling? And I want to tell you that I have been there many times. That PTSD, it's like a punch in the gut when you see an old behavior reappear. And it's worse when you've worked so hard to get where you are. It's almost like you're scared. You're scared to sort of hope and live again. But here's what I want to tell you. Here's what I want to tell you today. That fear doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that, that everything is unraveling. It means that you care. You're invested in your child's healing, in everything, emotionally, financially, energetically, So of course you're watching for every single sign, as I was. Your heart races when something feels a little bit off. But the real question isn't just, is this behavior ADHD? I think the better question is, what is my child's body trying to tell me right now? Developmental behavior versus dysfunctional patterns. And I want to break that down for you. Sometimes kids are just being kids. They are impulsive. They're messy. They forget things. They push every single boundary that they can. They make weird jokes and they roll their eyes at us, and they get obsessed with, Minecraft or the color green. This is all normal. especially for boys. I can tell you that. I've got two of them, and especially in elementary school and middle school and even into high school. Now, neuroscientists know that the prefrontal cortex, okay, the part of the brain that helps us plan and focus and regulate emotions and delay gratification isn't fully developed until age 22 to 25. Your 8-year-old who zones out during math, normal. Your 11-year-old who talks non-stop and can't sit still at dinner, that's my son, my younger one. Also normal. But there's a difference between developmentally typical behavior and a pattern that's interfering with your child's life and your life. So here's how I think about it. Normal is occasional forgetfulness, a couple times a week. Concerning is never ever remembering basic instructions, even with support. Support might look like charts or things like that. Normal is emotional outbursts during transition or stress. Concerning is daily meltdowns, multiple times a day over minor changes. Normal is fidgeting or talking in class. Again, my 11-year-old. I always throw them under the bus. Concerning is that constant disruption, the inability to focus or complete any assignments despite accommodations. And I think that we need to shift our perspective here. It's not about them being perfect. It's about patterns. It's about intensity or frequency, I suppose, and the impact on your child's ability to thrive. The roller coaster of healing is where it gets sort of tricky. Say your child used to have 6 meltdowns a week, and now they're having 1. That's huge progress, right? But that one meltdown hits so much harder because you're no longer in this sort of survival mode. You finally have tasted that peace. So when things flare again, even for just a moment, it feels like a threat. That's the emotional roller coaster no one talks about. And it's not just about behavior. It's the second sort of guessing we do as parents. I want to share something a mum messaged me literally yesterday as I was planning this episode, and it was out of nowhere, and it punched me right in the heart because I was writing this episode. I'm like, what timing is that? Her son, he was one of those kids with constant school phone calls, aggressive outbursts, things being thrown, calls from the school, come pick me up, we can't handle him today, like all of it. He was on 3 medications just to get through a day, a school day, a home day. Fast forward, he's not on any medication now. He's doing well. He's focusing in class. He doesn't have that aggression, like totally different child. So you'd think that she'd be over the moon, right? But she told me at the start of the school year when the phone didn't ring, her nervous system totally freaked out. She was sitting on her porch swing, a peaceful morning or afternoon, like absolutely no problems. And boom, out of nowhere, a panic attack. Because for years, silence in her home meant brace yourself, something bad's coming. So when life got really calm for her, her brain didn't know what to do with that. And it went straight to sort of like that, danger, danger, danger. And she said, I didn't even realize how long I'd been living in fight or flight. Even when everything was fine, my body was still sort of waiting that next crisis. Like, oh gosh, like if that isn't the most ADHD parent sentence in the world, we spend years holding our breath, and when we can just breathe and peace finally shows up, we don't trust it yet. Not because, not because we're weak, but because we've been, trained by trauma to expect chaos. And that's what I mean when I say this journey doesn't just focus on our kids. It doesn't just focus on our kids' nervous system. It's so important that we also focus on our own nervous system. It heals ours as well. So if you're sitting here or there, asking yourself, am I doing enough? When things aren't quite right. Should I reintroduce that supplement? Did I miss something? Is this a detox reaction or a food reaction? I just want to remind you that healing isn't linear. No child is perfect. Every kid will have big emotions. Every kid will have days when focus is hard. And that doesn't mean that something's broken. It means they're human children. Some days your child will feel amazing. And some days they'll really struggle. And that's true for all of us. That's true for every single human on this planet. But we've been conditioned, and this really, gets to me. We've been conditioned. Oh, guys, I don't know why. 45 years old, I just get these emotions that just come up out of nowhere when I'm talking about something I'm so passionate about, because I think this next thing, we've been conditioned to expect our children to behave better than most adults do. Seriously. And that's what really just brings up that emotion for me, because that's a big expectation. I know so many adults out there that do not behave perfectly at all. What I've seen helping 1,600 families, when I work with families, I've obviously ADHD is real. It is real. But gut and brain inflammation make it worse. Food sensitivities, nutrient deficiencies, poor detox can make behaviors seem out of control. But underneath it all, our kids are still kids. And when we reduce that internal stress on their bodies, when we support their biology, their behavior does change. But we can't lose sight of the fact that development continues for decades. I've had clients panic because their 10-year-old was mean to his sister or threw something at their brother or hit their brother, or their 6-year-old lied about brushing her teeth. But I always ask, was that behavior happening every day? Was it the same intensity as before? Was your child able to recover more quickly this time? Those are all great questions. Press pause, rewind, write them down, put them somewhere, because that's what you need to pull out when you're feeling this way. Because progress is not, the absence of all struggle. It's how we respond. It's how they recover. It's how their environment supports them. Have you ever read a parenting book or went through a parenting course and thought to yourself, but this doesn't work for my child? I know I have. Parenting a child with ADHD can be challenging. Typical parenting strategies don't often work. And that's why when I started thinking about what parents of children with ADHD really need, I knew the answer had to do with parenting. The ADHD Thrive Jumpstart for Parenting provides parents with practical tips and tricks that actually work for neurodiverse children. Created with the help of a child and family therapist, this online program is the go-to resource for parents of neurodiverse children. Take a moment today to check it out at adhdthriveinstitute.com/parenting. Again, that's adhdthriveinstitute.com/parenting. Now let's get back to today's episode. We also need to stop, pathologizing boyhood, okay? And I say this, girls equally have ADHD, and ADHD symptoms, but I think I'm more deeply ingrained because I've got the two boys. Boys are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. Girls are less likely earlier in their childhood. That does them a disservice. But also boys are more likely to be misunderstood climbing trees, making fart noises, getting distracted, punching the air in the middle of class, wrestling in the hallway. They're not signs that ADHD symptoms are rife. It's not a sign that you're failing. I want to tell you a story, and I'm totally going to go off tangent here. It was just that wrestling that made me think about it. My son every year, my older son every year comes, has a party. Only 7 to 10 boys. It's on Super Bowl. They all come over, they watch Super Bowl. Last year, I think he had, 9 boys over. They were watching Super Bowl, but then they started wrestling. Okay, he was a freshman, grade 9 that year, and they were wrestling in the hallways. Anyway, one of them, punched their arm into the wall, making a massive hole. So I use that as an example because, does that mean that kid is, really struggling with ADHD behaviors, or my son's symptoms are coming back? No. These are signs of life. Some behaviors need redirection, yes. Let's not forget boys learn by doing, by moving, by pushing the boundaries. So if your son is energetic, curious, hyperactive, struggles to sit at a desk all day, it doesn't mean there's something wrong. It means the school system wasn't built with his nervous system in mind. And I'm sorry I'm focusing on just boys there. I should probably do another episode to focus on girls in that particular instant, because there are so many things that we can do to help the girls thrive as well. And everything I talk about is for both boys and girls, but that hyperactivity, that energy, it comes out so strong with boys. Okay, so total tangent off there, but what can you do? So if you're sitting there wondering, how do I tell the difference between what's normal and what's not? I recommend tracking patterns, not one-offs. Don't judge a bad week. Look at the overall direction towards your goal. Listen to your gut. You know your child better than anyone. Look at the body, not just the behavior. If the behavior shifts happen alongside gut issues or sleep issues or diet changes or illness, it's probably the biology talking, okay? Focus on healing over time over managing symptoms. When we support the gut-brain connection, we calm the nervous system and ours as well and reduce those internal stresses. We know that behavior shifts often will follow. Let's let the kids be imperfect. They're still learning, they're still growing, they're allowed to have off days, and so are we. Okay, final thoughts. Is it normal or is it ADHD? Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's just a tired kid who needs more connection, who needs more protein. Sometimes it's a flare-up of inflammation from a hidden food trigger. And sometimes it's just this beautiful, complicated mix of growing up with a sensitive nervous system in a world that doesn't always understand. So mama, dada, caregiver, whoever you are, I can't believe I just said dada, but parent, take a deep breath. You are doing better than you think, and your child is still growing. They're still healing. They're still learning how to be in this world. Let them be messy. Let them be human. Let them be in process. You've got this, and I'm here to remind you, you're not alone. For me, I think this is one of those episodes that I truly hope gets shared far and wide, because whether you're just starting this journey or you're years into it, this question, is it normal or is it ADHD, sits heavy in the heart of nearly every parent I work with. If this episode brought you some sort of relief or, I don't know, even a little bit of validation, please send it to a friend. Post it in a Facebook group or share it with your partner. The more we talk about the real emotional experience of raising a neurodiverse child, the more we give other parents permission to stop questioning themselves and start trusting their gut. We need so much more of that. We need more honesty and we need more support. So thank you for being here with me, listening to my rants. Thank you for showing up for your child. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at adhdthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.